I shared on my Instagram a while ago that one of my great ambitions is to have a bookshelf that looks like throughout my life I did great adventures in some magical land, and now I'm retired and trying to just write down everything and kind of record my adventures and have a bookshelf filled with, novels and specimens and all that kind of stuff. And everyone was really supportive and was like, heck yeah, that sounds like goals, do it. So I built this bookshelf and decorated it with that goal in mind. After I built the bookshelf, I was really wondering, I was like, where did I get this idea from? Where did this inspiration come from? And I recently started rereading this. It's A Natural History of Dragons by Marie Brennan. And if you haven't read it, it's a great book, and I'm kind of gonna just brag about it a little bit and tell you why you should read it, and definitely why I think young women should read it. Something that happens a lot with strong female characters is they are strong because of their mind, because of their wit, but they're usually portrayed as being very strong because they can throw a punch. At some point, they end up having to physically fight their way out of something. They're shown as being physically stronger than some sort of man in the situation. They can beat them in a physical fist fight. And that's all well and good, but it's portrayed so much that that's considered what being strong actually is. We only consider strong as being physically strong, and I think that's quite the shortcoming, because there are so many different ways to be really strong and accomplish things of worth in life without throwing a punch. Something that A Natural History of Dragons does really well is that the main character, Lady Trent, is not a fighter. She gets physically strong, but it's because she's hiking. She's carrying her equipment around. She, to my memory, never actually has to physically fight her way out of much of anything. She gets in physical altercations, but she's definitely not portrayed as like the Black Widow type at all, where she can, she's gonna win the fight. You don't think her throwing a punch is the best option. Lady Trent has to overcome other obstacles, ones that I think are more relatable, things such as societal expectations and norms, and gender expectations and norms, and things in her field of study. Obstacles about gaining respect from your colleagues, managing your life. Those are things that everyone has to deal with in one way or another. Fighting against or rising up to the expectations of your gender, your class, your skin color, your national expectations, whatever it is. We all have that to some extent in some way. Something else that I think is absolutely fantastic that you don't see nearly enough in books and in characters is the self-awareness, in that she understands when she's not being a good enough of a person. So in the first book, she realizes that the people that they're staying with, the locals rather, she realizes she hasn't actually taken much of an interest in their personal lives. And this means that she doesn't have a full grasp of who they are as people and how she should behave as well. She doesn't really have a full grasp or even a working knowledge of their religion and their beliefs. And this causes her to at times be blatantly and unintentionally disrespectful. This is something that she becomes aware of and then does a great thing, which is she realizes this as a fault and does something that I think is even better, which is she then works actively to remedy that and improve herself. We also see her later on try to develop better as a mother, and that's something that I don't think it's acknowledged very much in storytelling either. It's normally, oh, motherly instincts took over, and this character has no motherly instincts whatsoever. She's the first to confess it, But she does love her son, and she does try to become better at being a mother, to be better for him, because she loves him. And that's something that you don't really see very often, is, you know, someone admitting, or someone writing a character that is just not a good mom unintentionally. Usually if they're writing a character that's a bad mother, they do so very purposely. As a negative trait, you're supposed to hate this person. Seeing it where it's the main character and they're quite lovable, and it's just, they just don't have those instincts. It's nice to see. This is a story, there's 5 books, I have 4. Just a good read. It has dragons, but there's no magic. It's female oriented, and that does, you know, come into the story and come into her world, of course. And something else that I think it does really well is it still has this fantastical feel to it, simply because of all the travel. You know, there are dragons, of course, but it's, you know, you get to see how traveling can be its own kind of magic. And we get to see, like, at one point, her and a female colleague are on an expedition, and they travel to a place, and they don't realize until they get there that the custom, and this is a custom that exists in some cultures in our own world, is the custom is that when women are menstruating, they have to be isolated. They have to be put in this special house and be completely separated from anybody else because they're unclean or whatever. And this causes an issue with their expedition because it's something that they work around, work with, and you see that throughout the adventures, is there are cultural expectations or demands that they have to work with or around in order to do their studies. And that's something that I think is really, really neat. You don't see that too often, especially in such a realistic way, because like I said, that's something that actually happens, and it's something that they're not synced, you know, so it causes a bit of an issue because half the time one of them is away, and then half the time, you know, they can't see each other because one week the one is isolated, and then the next week the other one's isolated, so they don't see each other half the time, and then half the time they're always short a person. And it's something that they have to really figure out, okay, how the heck are we actually going to accomplish what we need to accomplish, because every person is there for a reason to do some sort of job. But it's something that once the locals find out what, you know, what they're up to, or, you know, when those things are happening, they have to be isolated. They don't have a choice. So that's something that they have to work around. And seeing those kind of, you know, just cultural traditions in a fictional setting in such a way that's so realistic, and yet because you are dealing with dragons and some of these other things, it feels fantastical. It's always adventurous. For some reason or another, it's always adventurous. It's either they're making great discoveries, they're traveling across the sea, or, you know, climbing a great mountain, finding beautiful ruins, making great discoveries. There's always something adventurous going on, and it's a female protagonist that's not just punching her way out of everything. And she's not just strategizing her way out of everything either. There's a combination of her being smart, realistic, and also has a certain sense of daring. She has a willingness to put herself in danger, but not to a stupid degree. So she still has a good head on her shoulders. She learns from her mistakes. Something else that's just really fun is this is written from the perspective of, it is Lady Trent telling you the story as she's almost of like retirement age, reflecting back on her career. So you get to see, you know, like, in this instance, I shied away from doing such and such, which people that are familiar with my career would find laughable now. So you get to find out, like, okay, she's gonna do more of this crazy stuff. You find out like, oh, this penknife saved my life twice. Okay, how? You know, and you get those little teasers along the way. And yeah, so just, I think this is a story that girls of high school age, even like junior high, late elementary school age, should definitely read. And just anyone, really. Because it's a good book. But I definitely think for younger ladies, this is something to read, to find that strength that we have that isn't just based off of kicking hard. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more of this content, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss a single step of our journey together. Those likes, comments, subscribes are all widely appreciated. And thank you so much for joining me. And I look forward to seeing you in the next chapter. Bye.